Hey everybody, welcome back to the second half session of the live day trading room. We're currently trading at 3:03. We decided to hop on the stream because there's likely going to be some opportunities. FOMC minutes came out. You had a lot of chop and stop, massive reversal to the downside now. Now you're seeing the spiders in sell-off mode, so this is going to present some day trading opportunities. There's a couple of opportunities that I'm eyeing up right now for a long trade. But let's just be mindful that the Dixie is surging. Look at this powerful move. We've been discussing this breakout on the dollar, and it looks to be that we're getting it. So in terms of some trades that we're looking at, I just managed to scalp a little bit of a day trade one, which is nice. But I'm looking at Newmont Mining for a long. NEM at the level of 43.79. So we're about 40 cents away. If we see a last minute flush in this market, there's still plenty of time. We could get down there, but 43.79 is the level that I'm going to play Newmont long. I'm also potentially eyeing up, just give me 1 second here while I look at things. I'm also eyeing up Microsoft and Google, but I'm trying to decide which one's going to be the better play. So I'm probably going to look at Microsoft. If Microsoft were to flush down to the 248.72 level, 248.72 level. Let's go to this 248. I'm not saying it's going to, but it could. We're well off these zones right now, and the spiders are likely catching a small bounce. But considering we took out this low, made a new low, it leaves the markets in a very vulnerable predicament. Very, very vulnerable. And based off of gold, we've been telling you to watch gold. Gold's been our most important signal, being the fact that the dollar was negative earlier and gold was negative, told us that, oh, maybe gold's telling us that it's going to go lower. Spiders, we still haven't officially hit this downsloping trend line. We're coming up to a close. You can see we had a little bit of a bounce there off of the first level, but really it's the second level that's more major. And the spiders are coming back down again. So just keep Newmont on the radar. That's pretty much the only play. Surprisingly, Tesla is still positive on the session. Apple's gone negative. Tesla's definitely a powerhouse stock right now. Let's take a look at that rig that we traded this morning. Look at that level. It's basically held all day despite the markets going lower. So what that tells you or me is that there's relative strength. Pan W, Palo Alto starting to come in a lot harder now. Definitely coming in. Let's do a spider check. Let's take a look at the quick QQQ. Take a look at Mr. Softy. Let's take a look at Google. Let's take a look at RKK. So this ETF is going to be interesting because they have a whole host of earnings after the bell. Let me just go through the earnings list right now. I know we do have Teladoc, which is one that we will be watching. A couple of the Chinese plays were earlier. Scrolling through my list. Oxygen, Siren, CYREN. I think that already reported. CYREN. Take a look at this daily chart. Natural gas had a nice little sell-off. So the Siren reports earnings. It's just been decimated. Potentially putting in a daily bottoming tail. We'll see. Or a little bit of a doji candle. We're still waiting on Newmont. Newmont hasn't really come down to our level as of yet. Obviously the big one after the bell is Nvidia, Pioneer, eBay. Let's just go through some of these charts. Nvidia, we're obviously going to be watching Nvidia after the bell, but there's definitely plays on Nvidia. I'm hoping it pops up to gap fills. Anything above 220 we can start accumulating shorts. If you're wanting to wait till 230, that's okay as well. We're also going to look at PXD. PXD has been decimated. Look at this slow grind lower. Only down in the session by about 1%. This topping formation is very, very critical. Basically what I'm seeing right off the bat is this key trend line to trigger your topping formation, which you've actually just broke yesterday and you appear to be confirming it today. So now on PXD, this chart is actually a great short setup. It's officially, if it closes down here in 51 minutes, it's given us a M-top trigger. It's triggered the topping formation on the daily chart. Now what this means is, considering it's oversold, what we're going to watch for is for bearish consolidation to occur in this little range underneath this white trend line. And once we get a few days of bearish consolidation, as long as we don't get to recapture this white trend line, we can short it and look for the drop lower. And this type of pattern, I mean, we're talking about a 288 to about a 200. So we're talking about an $88 move down from here, which could put us around the, what would that be, 110, 115 area. You know, so 110, 115 area, long-term time frame pattern, basically down to these pivots. So that's how we're going to play PXD. Obviously, earnings can change things drastically, so we'll have to be aware of that. Let's take a look at eBay. eBay on the daily actually looks poised to potentially move higher. I wouldn't chase this, but it does look to be favoring long side. Let me look on the larger term time frame, the weekly. Yeah, actually this is not a bad chart at all. I would say that eBay is likely going to pop on earnings. I'm not going to chase it. I'm not prepared to chase it. What we can look to do is buy eBay back if it were to drop on a retrace back down to this 42 area. We could buy it as a long 42.60, 42.50, give or take. That would be a retrace. But the daily and the weekly actually don't look poised, or don't look bad at all. Do not look bad at all. Spiders are really struggling though. Let's continue to look through some of these other ones. I know we have Teladoc, After the Bell, EXR, extra storage space. Lucid Group will be an interesting one. So looking at Teladoc, Teladoc's just oversold, drastically oversold. Could it go lower? Absolutely it could. Could it go higher? Absolutely it could. Now, I'm not prepared to play this. If I were to lean to one side of the camp, I would say that Teladoc is actually looking more bullish on the daily chart to potentially break higher. So therefore, it does favor probably upside heading into earnings. Where I would feel comfortable shorting this stock is if we got a pierce of this $40 level, and then probably up into this double 44.30 zone. I'd look to start accumulating a short. Let's look at extra storage space, or extra space storage. EXR is the ticker. EXR is looking bearish. You've had a decent sell. You're at major support now. Big level for this pattern. You're either going to make or break this pattern. If I were to lean in terms of a bias to this particular stock, I would say it's going to favor downside price action, just based off the fact that you had a magnificent rally with the market and you really have started to sell off before the S&P topped. So that's showing a little bit of relative weakness. No touch chart for me unless we had a big move in either direction, but really a no touch on that end of the chart. Just going to keep scrolling through this list to see what else we have. I know we have ANSS. ANSS probably moves up, looks a little bit more bullish. But again, the common theme that we've seen is that once you get a pop on earnings, it's an opportunity to fade those earnings. So that's kind of my expectations there. But Nvidia is obviously the big market moving one. Let's take a look at the Lucid chart. There was a lot of speculation. Now you are still inside of this green range pop. This was on the news that the Saudis were putting in a bid to basically buy. And it popped, and now it's doing a good retrace. Honestly, this one's a wild speculative one. No real levels that I'm seeing on Lucid. Notice how you did get a retrace there. Minimal bounce, now you're falling. So this chart probably leans more bearish at this point in time. Let's keep our eye on the spiders because we may still have that trade set up. There's 45 minutes to go and the spiders are continuing to sell. Now, my expectation for the spiders is that we could see a late day sell-off, a late flush in this market where they throw the baby out with the bathwater. I would certainly not be surprised if that came to fruition on the spiders. Now let me just see if we have a big level. There is a nice level at 396.80. 396.80 on the SPY. But considering we're consolidating there, that level's not as strong as it would usually be. And then after that, about 394.39, so right in around this level would be your next big support. You have the 50 daily moving average around 396.57. So I'm just going to draw a little line of support. Now, what we're doing here is actually putting in bearish consolidation to move lower. This is not healthy for the price action, because what this means is that we're actually building a base to have a bigger move down, which is called distribution. Intraday distribution is definitely occurring. Let's take a look at the natural gas chart, because that one did have a massive rally and then a big sell-off. It's still up nicely on the day, up over 5.33%, but definitely had a big sell-off off of that Fed news. If we look on the daily chart of nat gas is still putting in a nice little potential bottoming signal over here. It would have been better if we did engulf this on the daily. Perhaps there's still some time, but that's a big if as of now. But nonetheless, natural gas is in the short term. It did put in a little reversal, now putting in a mini bull flag to potentially continue moving higher. So that's at least short-term positive. The fact that natural gas didn't give up all of its gains, did give up a good chunk. I mean, we're talking about from the high there basically to the low, a 6% decline, you know. So we were up 11% on the day, double digits there, and natural gas couldn't hold it. We also have Mosaic, MOS, reports earnings. Now this chart is actually very tricky. Mosaic, first thing I want to do is observe that we have had a short-term daily breakout. So that's the one thing that I've observed. Now, the downside on this chart is that you are making, the trend is lower. You're in a downtrend. You're making a series of lower highs. Here's your first high. Here's your lower high. Here's your lower high. And potentially here's your lower high. So this chart is actually at a big inflection point. And these charts are notorious for luring in retail traders and traders that don't have much experience in pattern recognition and understanding what the major and minor trends are and whether or not a stock has truly broken out. Basically, this chart is poised to potentially move higher, but you have to remember that the main trend is still down. So when you factor in that over time the main trend is actually looking bearish and moving much lower, we have to be mindful that at any point in time the main trend is likely to take hold of this pattern and it could force it lower. Now, being the fact that it is a little bit short-term positively bullish, like I said, you could move up, but your big resistance is going to be this third lower high pivot. If you can get a daily close above that, then this chart starts looking a lot more bullish. But until now, it's really a risk because you're still stuck in a downtrend. Yes, you're putting in bullish consolidation to move higher, but believe it or not, it doesn't make it a slam dunk on this potential trade setup. Let's flip back to the S&P because we are getting a little bit of a bid here off of the lows. Still really nothing. You're still putting in bearish consolidation, so I would still favor a move lower. There's still about 40 minutes for them to flush this market. That's plenty of time. I've seen 10-minute flush candles. I've seen 20-minute flush candles. I've seen 30-minute flush candles. And I've also seen them rip the market. So obviously it's not a slam dunk for this market to sell off, but the dollar's cooling, but we're putting in bearish consolidation. It'll be interesting to see how the ARK ETF performs because they are exposed to Kathy's holdings. Basically today after the bell you have Nvidia, you have Teladoc. I think let me just scroll through those to see what else we have. few smaller household names. IQ, well, that reported this morning. But mainly just NVIDIA. We'll keep NVIDIA on the radar to see what it does. Let's go over some NVIDIA expectations. We were obviously short that. I'm hoping that it pops so we can go short. Even if it doesn't, I mean, we have a sell signal on NVIDIA, but earnings could change things. So we can clearly see, let me just remove some of these trend lines. Basically, as soon as we get into this high 220 area, NVIDIA is a slam dunk short. Again, we've played NVIDIA on the short side already and we've won. And I don't want to hold it into earnings because I do have just a gut feeling. And you can't really trade off guts, but as a trader, you sometimes do learn to pay attention to your gut. And I have a gut feeling that NVIDIA wants to pop up on strong earnings. There's a lot of shorts that have piled in. Yes, it's a sell signal. Yes, it's a short signal in my opinion. But we really haven't filled this key technical gap all the way to the upside around 230, a pierce of 230. And then we also have some gaps to the upside here around 219. So I think it's going to be a pivotal area for NVIDIA. I'm hoping NVIDIA actually gaps up and pushes higher because I want to accumulate yet again another short on this particular name. And then it will also give us some sympathy trades where we can also accumulate additional short trades in the event that NVIDIA starts, in the event that it lifts all of the other sympathy trades in the market. But right now, I'm hoping NVIDIA pops up. There's about 3 gap fills to the upside that it needs to fill. And it's likely that it could. I mean, we have to wait and see if we can get that gap fill, but it's certainly likely that it could. Basically around this 231 level, pierce of 231 is where the official gap is. So right now, NVIDIA is holding its positive gains. And I have short levels, I have long levels to day trade as well. In terms of short levels, I'm looking to start accumulating shorts anything above this 220 area. Anything above that 220 area. And in terms of where I'd consider playing it long, anything in this area here, this 180 pierce to 170, it's a $10 range, but that's where I'd feel comfortable building a position on NVIDIA. Okay, so at least we have some upside targets, some downside targets. Maybe it's a nothing event. Could certainly be a nothing event, but we will find out. But NVIDIA's market cap is market moving. Definitely on the heavy side. What are we sitting at now? $500 billion, 500 billion, and it's just important for the semis, important for the tech. But at 500 billion deep, we will see. Spiders are now seeing a little bit of a late sell side pressure coming in. Oil's had a small bounce off the lows. Spiders are trickling now. Doing a little trickle down. Will they flush it? So notice this bear flag pattern. And then look at this DXY pattern. The exact inverse. Bullish little mini bull flag forming. Find it so fascinating. Very, very fascinating. But it's been a very profitable day for us. It's been extremely profitable. We were able to close 3 winners in the day trade room live in the morning. I was able to trade as well. We also covered coin for a massive 8%. We covered our XOM short. Another interesting stock that I've eyed up now is GE. So I issued a GE short alert today. So we are now short GE. GE is starting to get a little toppy and it's curling over as if it's running out of momentum and steam. It's still a strong stock and there is the possibility that it could go up to this kind of triple top or double top zone around 90 bucks. But we are now at good resistance and I'm starting to see intraday distribution. So I issued the short alert today for members right at 83.68. So look at this nice little dump coming in on GE. Speak of the devil, eh? Speak of the devil. So we are now short GE at 83.68. This is a swing trade with my members alert service, but it is a powerful stock. It's a starter position. Spiders are trying to catch a small bid here. So we're just waiting on things right now. Let's do a quick check on coin. Coin's pushing up. This should be affected by ARC after the bell. Obviously Teladoc. Let's take a look at Teladoc. Spiders are getting a nice little pop here. Spiders are getting a nice little pop. Nvidia's perking up. Apple's perking up. Nice little move on the S&P. The big thing is, can we get above this little reversal pivot here? Notice how you tried once, you tried twice, form these wicks, sellers are present. So that's the big thing I'm watching for, is do we get a candle close in 10 seconds above those pivot highs? If you do, it's short-term bullish. And what I mean by short-term is a move to these next pivots. If you don't, then it's bearish. And you did get it close. So short-term bullish, you likely could move up. But again, we're still stuck in a big sell-off bar here. So everything inside of this is still technically bearish, but it does give you the opportunity to move up to these 399 pivots. So let's just see what transpires here. So far in an hourly close, it looks to be that you're holding that low pivot. You did make a closing a new low on the 10-minute chart. You haven't confirmed it though. And we'll see what else transpires with this price action. Boyle's looking actually interesting again for a long trade. I'm going to go long Boyle here, put a stop right at 485, so I'm long at 486 Boyle. Long Boyle with a stop loss right at 484, 2-cent stop loss. We're going to be looking for at least a 10-cent gain, 2-cent risk. Boyle's starting to uptick now, that's nice. That's good to see. So we're in at 486 long Boyle. This one just hopped on my radar after my natural gas chart. It looked like it's putting in some nice consolidation. So we're just gonna watch that. But I have a tight stop loss. We're long 486 and my stop loss is at 484. So I'm risking, it's a 5-to-1 risk to reward. I'm risking 2 cents for 10 cents. And because it's late in the session, I am okay with putting a stop loss. Come on, Boyle. Spiders are still trying to... Let's take a look at the spiders. Spiders are starting to come back in now. We're still just waiting on Boyle. We're in the money 1 penny. 1 penny on Boyle. So ARC is actually remaining fairly strong, pushing up. Nvidia is remaining. Spiders are trying to continue a bounce. So the only spiders are coming in harder now. Let's see if this is the flush that they start. Let's see if this is the flush. Keep our eye on Boyle as well. We're still waiting on Boyle. Boyle, we're now basically flat on Boyle. Basically flat on boil. Let's flip back to the SPY. SPY is coming in harder now. So definitely stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream. Tomorrow there's going to be lots of action with today's market session. Even though the spiders are only down 0.3%, it really feels like the markets were down more today, just based off of the fact that the markets tried rallying, tried recapturing most of this range, and then fell again. So that's the importance. There's a lot I'm going to be touching base on in my members daily analysis video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. You can view that on our website at tradingcapital.ca, but that's going to be an exclusive analysis. There's lots of interesting details that we have to touch base on. There's things we have to talk about in the FOMC minutes. Spiders are still trickling down. Spiders are trickling down. In most scenarios, I would have played this 396.79 for a long trade on the spiders, but considering you've put in now basically 25 minutes of consolidation here, bearish consolidation, if we get a flush and take out this pivot, we're likely going to slice through this level. There's going to be a lot of orders waiting here, and market makers know that. Market makers love to consolidate things above a key level and then rip it through to basically force people to react. You know, when a lot of people, if a lot of people are waiting here to buy long, and market makers rip it through, and the people expecting a bounce are just waiting here, day traders, and it doesn't get a bounce and it just slices through and pierces by 50 cents or a dollar, all those people stop out or panic out of fear, and they start selling and they start shorting, and then the market can actually rip it up on you and move to the upside. So it's very counterintuitive as to how things work. I just got stopped out of my boil for a 2-cent loss. A 2-cent loss. Sorry, I haven't been stopped out yet. It'll be in 5 minutes, or unless we get a close below this 484. So boils on watch for a stop out. Basically, if we're trading at 484 after this 5-minute candle, I will be stopped out for a small 2-cent loss, which is okay. I mean, you know, you gotta risk it to get the biscuit sometimes. Microsoft's at the lows of the session. Microsoft's been really, really weak. I mean, just disgustingly weak in relevance to the other mega caps. So I just got stopped out of boil. I took a 2-cent loss there. 484. Stopped out of boil. That's a 2-cent loss on that trade. That's okay though. We'll move on. So basically 3 of 4 today. Still massive profits, but you got to abide by the stop. There's not a lot of time, and it was a starter position. 2-cent loss is very minuscule. Let's just say I won't lose sleep over that, considering we've crushed Coinbase day trade for 8%, and then a few earlier ones in the morning session as well. So the markets are trying to find a little bit of momentum here to the upside. We'll see if it can bolster any type of move late into the session. We have about 28 minutes left. So far this pattern is extremely bearish. Let me be clear, this favors downside. This favors downside in the short term. Let's do a volume check. The volume is light, so what that tells us is that the market could always float back up, only on 60 million shares. That is extremely light. You can see off the FOMC we had our initial high volume spike period, and now it's starting to wane and falter. And today oil got crushed. The oil chart is really signaling us something. The question is, are you paying attention? So basically oil has had no bid all day long. It seems like the US is winning this energy war in the short term, very, very short term. You know, they may win the initial war, but eventually everyone needs oil, and that's what wars are fought over, is energy and oil and commodities. But nonetheless, taking a look at oil's chart, this is dangerously deadly, dangerously deadly. Look at this key trend line you're piercing today. Therefore, when you have a bullish pattern that fails, that likely tells us that this particular chart is going to be heading much, much lower. So that's the dangerous aspect of this oil chart that we have to be mindful of, that it's basically telling us it wants to head to the $66 level. And maybe even more. Let's just pull up the USO in comparison just to see what's going on. USO is also testing this huge trend line. Let me just draw this in for you. Basically, you can see this key trend line over here. Let me erase these lines. So you can see USO hit this pivot over here, sliced through it over here, had a good bounce, and now it looks to be that you're actually breaking and confirming below it. So US oil is on watch for a much larger breakdown. I find it fascinating that this breakdown in energy is coinciding with a breakdown in the overall markets. Spiders are now still trying to catch a small bid. We're waiting on Newmont for a long. Waiting on Newmont. I think some of the transportation stocks are really signaling negative price action as well. You know, when you look at something like CSX, which we're obviously short, and it's paying us handsomely, look at just this continuous sell all day long. CSX. And when you look at the larger term pattern, extremely bearish. Extremely. You had your wedge. You broke out of your wedge. You retraced your wedge. You broke out of your wedge again. This is in dire straits, this pattern. Let me show you another key level that we're basically breaking as of today's price action. So look at this little trend line. You finally broke it today, and it's on watch for a confirmed breakdown. So this is deadly, and look what's happening. What did I warn you of? The bearish consolidation on the S&P 500. The SPY is at the low of the session and looking like it's on the verge of breaking down, just like we discussed. So definitely some interesting price that's occurring. If this market sell-off caught you off guard, then you need additional investing and trading resources, and we're happy to help provide them for you. But this sell-off shouldn't have caught anyone off guard, in my opinion. And just like the January rally shouldn't have really caught anyone off guard, the only thing that had caught me off guard about the January rally is how much farther it went. But you should have been able to see the rally, you should have been able to see the sell-off coming, and it's all based off of probabilities. Tesla's still positive on the session in a weak market tape. A little bit of relative strength there. ARK is starting to come down. Oil's at the low of the session as well. Oil just can't get out of its own way. Good to see our one long position, even in a strong dollar, is still holding well. Chegg. Powerhouse Chegg. No, I wouldn't call it a powerhouse. It's been actually slaughtered, but our level is at 1570. So it's actually holding up well in this weak market. So that's good to see. At least that shows that even in a weak tape, our stock that we just went long is showing relative strength. And look what we just did on the S&P 500. New low incoming. Will they open up the floodgates? Will they open up the floodgates? It's a possibility. Keep Newmont mining on the radar. We still have 20 minutes. If they flush this, we still could have a trade. Let's keep Newmont on the radar. The spiders, we could also go along the S&P 500. I wouldn't really go along anything else. Maybe Microsoft. Let me just see on Microsoft. If Microsoft were to hit 248, if we were to flush, it's still available for a long. But we're seeing most of everything starting to see additional weakness. Even the likes of JPM coming in. Walmart's showing exceptional weakness today, down 2.63%. Take a look at Walmart after that massive reversal on earnings, just pretty much roping people in, snaking people in, gap down on earnings, mega reversal. They force the people that go short on earnings to get wiped out, and then the people that cover their shorts go long chasing this price action, and then they rip it back down. It just shows you the psychology and craziness of these markets. It's really amazing and fascinating. But Walmart down 2.5%, getting demolished. That's great for our short, which we're in the money as well. Awesome to see. I'm certainly thrilled and happy with that aspect. Gold is starting to see some additional sell side pressure. ITW is breaking down. Lots of different charts are breaking down. Many different charts are breaking down, put in sell signals. Obviously, we've pulled off a massive amount of short positions already with this recent decline. It has been extremely profitable. Probably the most profitable month that I've had trading in my career, in my TC career. So if you've been fortunate to follow us through this January, February, and 2022-2023 journey since we've started our professional trading service, you've been able to be on the right side of this market now. In a time where volatility, uncertainty, fear, greed has all been present in this market cycle. And the beautiful thing is, this volatility likely continues at least for another 12 to 24 months. And I apologize, you do not have my full attention today. I'm watching the Champions League soccer game. So, simultaneously trading, watching Champions League. We also have another, for those Italian fans out there, you have Italy or Inter facing FC Porto. So it's a classic Italian versus Portuguese derby. And then in this one you have a classic English versus German derby. Obviously City's killing them. Well, not killing them, but definitely the favorites. RB Leipzig still are tough at home. Now let's just focus back on the markets here. We're still just waiting on things. Nvidia is certainly going to be important for this market. I want to show you on the Qs though, the Qs daily chart. So a couple things to pay attention to on the tech chart. Basically tech had its massive uptrend which we broke. No question about that. Now you're putting in bearish patterns over here. You have hit your, you've sliced through your first big level of support, which was this high red pivot. Now the big level I'm watching on the Qs, simple. Let's keep it very, very simple. There's just this downsloping trend line over here. I like that downsloping trend line. Other people like this one. Realistically, both are fine. If you're doing it more conservatively, then likely this one's going to be your level. Let's just assume it's this conservative one. The Qs still are very far away from their trend line as opposed to the S&P. And considering the Qs hold so much weight in this market, and there's likely a lot of buyers waiting on the S&P buying here, if the Qs were to flush down an extra, let's call it 2.5%, that likely means the spiders fall at least another 2%, slicing through this major technical level where there's likely a lot of people loading up the calls, loading up long positions. So this is why, even if we have a technical level, technical analysis is not enough by itself. And this is where you have to use the cross correlation and cross analysis of multiple sectors and indices. And you have to understand which indices hold the most amount of weight, which ones don't, where there's likely capital rotation flowing into. But all I'm saying is that there's relative strength. There has been more relative strength in tech, which makes me think that if we can still have a larger decline, which could pull the major S&P indice a lot lower and breaking this key support. So just keep that in mind. I do think that we could see the Qs come to this 287.65 level before a bounce occurs. Let's look back to the S&P, and then we'll do a Russell check. So the spiders are just being met with every single little sell side pressure. Let's take a look at the IWM. IWM still hasn't made a new low. So notice the relative weakness in the S&P, most likely attributed to energy and financials. If we look at financials, XLF down 0.555%. If you take a look at XLE, down 1%. So definitely the S&P is showing more relative weakness today because it has the lagging components of the financials as well as the energy sector, as opposed to the Nasdaq is only tech, and the Russell really doesn't have as much market cap exposure. Spiders are now pushing for new lows. Our accounts are pushing for new highs. As the spider makes a new low, we make a new high. The big thing we want to see, which is our largest position right now, is long UNG. We obviously want to see UNG perk up a little bit. It was nice when it was up here, but it did have a pretty amazing fall from grace there. But we would like to see UNG uptick some more. Again, the sell side pressure is starting to come in now. So definitely, it's not nice that we've reversed a lot of this price action in natural gas. Notice how you tried recapturing this channel, but you've been rejected off of that. It would have been a super, super, super bullish candle on the daily if we were to get that bullish engulfing, but we could not get it. The trend just shows you that it's still such a powerful downtrend. Now what I am watching on the weekly chart is maybe we're forming a weekly doji or a weekly bottoming tail, but time will tell. So back to the S&P, still trading near the lows. We have about 15 minutes till the closing bell, where the long-awaited NVIDIA earnings will be. Along with NVIDIA, a few other names. I'm just going to set up my charts for this earnings. Divide my window into 4 windows. Got the QQQ, NVDA. So NVIDIA will be a big market moving stock after the bell. NVIDIA will be on watch for a pop or a drop or maybe a nothing event. Who knows? Then we also have Teladoc, TDOC, after the bell. A couple of the other bigger names while I just pull them up here. Rio Tinto, that one's done. Petrobras, so PBR, that one's done. PXD is the other one. It's a big market cap. Roughly 49 billion. And we have eBay, Coterra, Lucid, Mosaic. So a few other names, but we'll just watch eBay because it's the next biggest. Get a good sense of the consumer health from their guidance and whether or not the market takes their earnings as a win or a loss. So right now, the spiders are trying to catch a small bid late into the session. We'll see if they can hold up into the close. NVIDIA does have some key upside targets that I would love to see it hit. If we were to pop and short it, I certainly do not mind at this point in time if NVIDIA pops to the upside. And it has put in the sell signal already. So most amount of market pops can be shorted. Alright, now that I have my charts ready on that other screen, ANSY, I'm going to flip back to this. Spiders are catching a small bid here late into the session. It's primarily being led by Apple and tech. But again, you did make a new low. All of this is still bearish, even with a small little pop. It doesn't mean anything for this chart. We'll see how they close this late in the session here, but market moving after hours NVIDIA will be a huge, huge report. So the spiders, again, are seeing weakness, a little bit of weakness here. Just got an alert on Qualcomm, so the spiders are dumping now, and an alert on Moderna at the same time. Let me just pull up those other charts. Markets are selling here. Markets are selling a little bit harder now. Let me take a look at this Qualcomm alert. So Qualcomm's actually into a really good area here. Usually I would play this for a long around this 123 level for a bounce. You can see it's bouncing now. Basically 122.90 is the official level that I want to play long. But considering that this is a semiconductor and NVIDIA is a semiconductor after the bell, I'm going to wait to play this. I would consider playing Qualcomm for a long, just a quick day trade. But considering NVIDIA's earnings are after the bell, it's too risky at this point in time. Take a look at Moderna. Moderna is seeing a bigger sell-off as well, down 1.79. It just made a new low. So that was the alert that I just got. But obviously that coincides with the spiders making a new low, which they are catching a small little minor bid at this point in time. So the markets are trying to perk back up. You may have a short-term reversal candle, being the fact that you made a new intraday low and now you're reversing. You really have to close above this first high pivot around 398.30, and then you attack your next high pivot and you slowly start stair-stepping your way up. But again, you only have about 9 minutes left in the session, which isn't a lot of time for this market to recapture a lot of the lost gains that it's had. But right now, things are still bouncing slightly. The Dixie has cooled off slightly as well, coming down a little bit. Tesla's still positive on the day, outperforming by 1.44%. Apple just turned positive, up 0.4%. NVIDIA is now green on the session. Intel's down 2.34%. AMC's down 2.4%. It was actually up on the session much more, and it obviously saw a big sell side pressure. Let's take a look at Ford. Ford is obviously catching a small bid, but also down on the session. Amazon is weak, but still positive, leading the mega caps here a little bit higher. Let's take a look at Google. Google's just slightly negative on the session. So the volume's starting to uptick now on the S&P 500. The big question is, can we get a positive close and engulf most of this bearish price action with this last 5-minute candle, or will the market makers send us back to the low of the range? But there's definitely buyers coming in here. The volume's increasing. Definitely still sellers though. And considering that this is a pretty big level of support on the daily chart, I mean, you just hit the 50 daily moving average on the SPX. So I can pull that up for you. That's why we're likely getting a bounce here, a little bit of a buy program. So let me pull up the 50-day here. Look at that. You just literally tagged that, which is why you're getting a likely bounce. I still think you should slice through it. Maybe there's a gap down tomorrow. It's really going to be dependent on Nvidia's earnings. I mean, that's going to be the big thing. This is going to be the play, Nvidia. Right now, it's put in a sell signal, but earnings can pop it. I have a feeling they're going to pop it on earnings because there are a lot of people short the stock right now. So max pain, in my opinion, would be to pop it, wipe out the shorts, get people more bullish, get the rest of the market to float up on this potential good report, and then they fade it like they did on Disney, and they fade it like they did on Microsoft, and they fade it like they did on Google, and they fade it like they did on Amazon. Notice the theme? Spiders are creating a little bit of a bounce now. So back to the S&P. So you are continuing to make a move. You hit that daily 50 moving average and you haven't looked back since. You've just bounced. Now there's still about 6 minutes left in the session. The 10-minute, the hourly, the daily is all still bearish trend. So there's a lot of work to do for this market to try to reestablish itself in the last 5 minutes of market session. But so far things are floating up. Yields are softening as well. But it should be an interesting after hours market session with Teladoc, Nvidia, ANSS, eBay, Mosaic, all some of the household names. Natural gas is still trickled lower. Oil's tried bouncing slightly, but really the markets are the only thing that's trying to bounce at this point in time. JP Morgan is down on the session. That's another leading stock. Some of the reversals on China stocks today were epically bad for Baidu. I mean, we gave that short level on Baidu for a day trade. And just look at that. Look at this, like, honestly, this is what market manipulation looks like in my opinion. And this is where FOMO and chasing comes into play. Where they gap it up, people chase it, and then they slam it back down to the negative side. I mean, we're talking about a massive move down. Just, this was planned. I mean, this type of sell side pressure was planned. Planned. And then anyone thinking, oh, I'm going to get Baidu at the same level before they made their announcement and before they had the pop, they buy here, and then they still slam it back down on people. I mean, one thing I've learned in my 10-year career here, coming up on 11 years now, is these market makers are ruthless. Money talks, bullshit walks. Honestly, everyone's out here to get their own bag, to retire, to make boatloads of money. And that's what it comes down to. There's really no other emotion in this market. No one's going to feel sorry for you if you blow up your account or you miss out or you lose. Someone has to lose at the end of the day. And that's where we just try to have more situations where we're more the winner than the loser. But finding that balance of probabilities and finding a strategy, and there's multiple different trading strategies out there that may work for you but not for me, may work for me but not for you. So you just have to find one that you're comfortable with, one that resonates, one that has worked through a multiple array of markets. And sometimes you have to pivot and adjust your strategy. Sometimes it doesn't work in certain market conditions. Sometimes you have to be a little more conservative. Sometimes you have to be more aggressive in bull markets. Be more conservative in bear markets. So it's all about fine-tuning and adjusting because the markets never stay the same. Human emotions always stay the same, greed and fear, but markets never stay the same. There's always new stocks. There's new headlines. There's new political leaders. There's new dictators. There's new wars. There's new crises. Which is why we just have to always continue to learn and adjust and find the right strategy that you feel comfortable with using. But so far to date, This has been a tremendous start to the new year for us. We are outpacing the market here at Trading Capital, which we're obviously very, very proud of. You are seeing a bounce continuation in this market. 398.18 is the level on the SPY. Microsoft's trying to bounce, heavy volumes coming in. Nvidia's trying to bounce as well. Apple's bouncing but seeing a little bit of weakness. If we flip over to Kathy Wood's ARK ETF, that's actually outperformed the market today, finishing up 2.399%. So I find that a little intriguing. Perhaps like lots of money is going into Teladoc ahead of the earnings. Obviously it's a smaller company, but it is up 3.29% on the session. Let's take a look at the QQQ. Qs are catching a nice little bid. IWM showed that relative strength because it didn't take out the initial intraday low like the S&P did. So you bounced, you've created a higher low, and now it's looking to see if we can take out this next pivot high. But a nice little pop coming into the close here. That's a really good pop on the spiders. Definitely a good pop on the S&P. Starting to rally a bit more now. But everything is still inside of this. Is the big level to close above. If you close above that, then you could attack these pivots. But if you still close below that, this pattern is still bearish. So the closing bell, let's flip back over to Nvidia, because Nvidia will be after the hours. Overall, it was a down day in the market session. A down day definitely in today's session. But basically, S&P showed relative weakness. Russell was the bigger winner. And then tech behind that. But we're going to cover some earnings plays here. And we'll do our analysis later in the video. But so far, Nvidia is the big chart after hours that we're watching. Teladoc's an important one as well. Lots of action that is going to be happening after the session here. Other than that, let's see what action these markets have for us. Let's see what action these markets have for us. So I'm just looking on my other screens for some after hours. We will look to potentially trade some names. Spiders are catching a small bid in the after hours. Now they're dropping, so they're kind of all over the place for now. Nvidia is seeing some initial weakness. So anything above 220 on Nvidia is a short trade. Anything above 220 on Nvidia is a short trade. I might even wait till 230 or 225. Right now we got a few names after the bell that we will keep our eyes on. Nvidia is obviously the main attraction. So far, no movement on Nvidia. Spiders are getting a small uptick. You have basically some minor movements in the after hours. Some minor movements. Just going to be Nvidia slightly up in the after hours. No movement yet on Teladoc. We also have Lucid earnings. Let's see if Lucid is out. Nothing on Lucid. Nvidia. I'm watching Bitcoin as well to see if there's any leading insights into the price action. So Lucid is actually slightly up in the after hour. Oh, now it's back to the flat side. Still just waiting on Nvidia. So NetApp is out, NTAP, that stock is out. Really no movement yet. No movement yet. S&P is slightly up. No movement yet on Teladoc. No movement on Teladoc yet. Nvidia is starting to downtick slightly. NVDA. Nvidia is starting to downtick slightly. Let's see what happens here with Nvidia. eBay numbers are out. Etsy numbers are out. Lucid missed on their revenue. Stock has not reacted yet. Big miss on the revenue though for Lucid, but no reaction. Teladoc is coming down. Take a look at Teladoc. Teladoc's now pushing up. Look at that big reversal on Teladoc. Teladoc's pushing up. Teladoc's still trying to push up. eBay is pushing up. eBay is pushing up. We're watching eBay gapping up. eBay's gapped up. Big move. 4% gap on eBay. Teladoc slightly up. Teladoc's up. Oh, Teladoc's down. Look at Teladoc going. Ah. Teladoc, Etsy's pushing up too. Etsy's flying. Etsy's flying. 8%. Let me see if there's a level on Etsy to trade here. Spiders are pushing up now. Nvidia is still the big one. Everything is pretty much will be negated if Nvidia misses. There is a short level on Etsy. This would just be a day trade level. You're seeing eBay pull off the highs. eBay is pulling off of the highs. So we actually have a short on Etsy if we were to, this is just a day trade. If we were to pierce the 144 level, 144 pierce, and we have a short, just a day trade short on Etsy. Take a look at T-Doc. Kathy Woods. Lucid's down almost 10%. Take a look at Lucid. So all the spec stocks are getting demolished now. That's a nasty little fall. Down about 10%. See how Bumble's expecting. Bumble hasn't really moved. Just bumbling. Lucid's still falling. Teladoc's still falling but catching a small bounce. Let's look at NetApp. NetApp is tanking. NTAP, I don't even know where it is right now. Let's take a look at Lucid. Still waiting on Nvidia. Teladoc is falling more now. Look at Teladoc. Teladoc is falling more now. So Teladoc is down about 9% in the after hours. eBay's pulled off the highs. Let's take a look at Mosaic. Nvidia should be out at 415 or maybe 420 on Nvidia. Let's look back to TDOC, catching a small bounce. NVDA. Really no movement yet on Nvidia. Nvidia is very, very dangerous. This could push the market up. If we get a pump up, it could really push this market up. Spiders are positive so far after the bell. Teladoc's still making lows on the session. Nvidia is catching a small uptick. Nvidia is trying to perk up slightly. Teladoc's still down. Spiders are net positive. Nvidia is starting to uptick, so Teladoc's still at the lows. Look at Nvidia go. Starting to uptick. It's lifting this whole market. So Nvidia had a little bit of an uptick there. Take a look at this. NetApp getting demolished down in the after hours here.